Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Grizzly Bear Sims YouTube channel, and welcome back to Lone Star. This is episode number 4. Thanks for coming back for another episode, and we are still in the same game day number 2, mid-spring, and we just got our case here filled up, and we're going to basically go over and plow a field here. We're going to plow field number 10. Red left the plow over there and went to go do some other things with the tractor that he was driving. And so we're going to go over there and grab the plow and then go ahead and knock that field out. And that will basically complete all of our fields as far as plowing is concerned. And we've got both Billy Bob and Red are basically cultivating and fertilizing this morning here, and they're fertilizing our field that we will soon seed in, I believe, wheat is what we've got that scheduled for. And basically you can see there's one of them coming around there in the Challenger with the fertilized spreader on it. And if you hear rapid noises similar to perhaps what might sound like gunfire, don't worry, it's not gunfire, and I don't even know if you'll be able to hear it. I can barely hear it down in my basement, and with the sound of the tractors and everything else that's running here in the game, I don't think that you can hear it. But basically we're getting our roof, our house re-roofed today. Had some issues with, let me make sure I'm going the right way here, and I'm kinda am. I guess it's a roundabout way that we can get there. Anyway, having our house re-roofed, I might have mentioned the frustration that I was experiencing several weeks ago in this whole thing. And well, finally we got all the insurance companies to more or less agree, and just as an FYI, we live in a HOA controlled neighborhood, and the HOA basically has insurance that covers the exterior of the house, and we as homeowners basically buy into that through our dues. We're obviously paying for the insurance. As I drive crazy on the road here, let me get on the road and try to stay there. So anyway, we had a storm, a hailstorm that came through in July of last year, and my wife and I were actually out of the country. We were on our European vacation visiting her parents, and also spending time in the English countryside that we enjoy doing every year and a half or so. And so when we got back, we really didn't notice. Some neighbors told us that there'd been a big storm and everything, but we didn't really think anything about it. And just visibly looking at our roof and everything, we didn't see any signs of anything. We didn't have any major tree damage, tree limbs, that kind of stuff was all intact. And we don't have like skylights or anything like that that would have basically been a sort of a telltale sign that things were not as they could be. And so let me just turn off the road here. We get rid of the flashers or the strobes and come down here and pick up our plow. Anyway, long story short, sometime after the storm in July and before or between the New Year, January time frame, the HOA's insurance company, or the HOA, had basically asked the insurance company that they have that covers the exterior of the houses and the property and such to come out and do an inspection of all the properties. And they did that, and they determined that we had all this damage. Well, so we get this letter in the January time frame, and the letter more or less sort of causes my wife and I to panic just a little bit, because the letter literally is just sort of doom and gloom with everything that it was discussing, and more or less, sort of led us to believe that we had all this damage. And so, long story short, we got on the horn and called our insurance company, because we have insurance to basically cover the insurance that the homeowners association has, just simply because we just want to make sure that we are well covered. And so that's kind of the situation that we have. And so so again, our insurance company comes out, climbs on the roof. This was done possibly in the March, probably it was like early March time frame at this particular point in time. Came out, climbed on the roof, and they basically said no damage. We also had the roofing company, which did our roof about 6 or 7 years ago. They came out, and the inspector, climbs on the roof, takes a look at it, and says, well, I can see some damage, I can see some spotting, but he says, to be quite honest with you, you have a 50-year roof, which is essentially lifetime, but it's a 50-year roof, 50-year shingle. And he's like, if he says, I wouldn't, he says, if you don't want to replace it, there's really no need to replace it. It's gonna serve you well for many, many years to come. And so because of his feedback, and more or less the feedback that we got back from our insurance company, which again sort of led us to believe that there were no problems at all, as I kind of go off-roading here up this hill. My apologies for that, because that was kind of unrealistic, but anyway. So we're sort of back to, square one with the fact that our insurance company is saying there's no damage. The roofing company inspector is like, well, I see some pits and everything, but his exact words were, to be quite honest with you, some of that could have been during the installation process. And again, it wasn't like majorly damaged. It was just little pits here and there. Well, so we went back to the HOA and to the HOA's insurance company and basically said, well, we need more information from you. We need you to come back out and re-inspect this. And then B, we need, photographic evidence that you basically did find some damage, and help us understand why 3 other people, 2 inspectors with the insurance company, our insurance company, and then the roofing contractor, why they're basically saying that there's not significant damage. So again, try to make the story a little shorter here and speed up some time. So several weeks went by, and we had letters that kind of went back and forth between our insurance company, the HOA's insurance company, ourselves, the HOA, and pretty much we even sought legal advice, because the situation was that the HOA's insurance company was basically saying, if you don't correct these problems, and essentially if you don't have your house re-roofed by July the 15th of 2017, and if there is a hailstorm after that particular point in time, your roof is not going to be insured. And so that put us in a little bit of a panic mode and everything. And I'm not an attorney, I'm just an IT guy, like I've talked about here many times. And so again, sort of long story short, we call up our insurance company again, and this time we've got the proof, we've got the photographic proof and everything. And again, while I'm not a roofer, I can see the damage that they're talking about. So we have our insurance company come back out one more time, take a look at it, and completely different inspector, by the way. The second inspector is like, yeah, I see damage. And basically, if you don't know anything about roofing inspections, and trust me, I've learned a lot about hailstorms, composite shingles, the entire process as far as how the inspection and everything takes place. I've learned about all of this stuff over the course of the last several months. Is that what they do is they measure a 10-foot by 10-foot area on your roof, or they actually lay out several 10-foot by 10-foot areas on your roof, and they then count the number of pings or dings or whatever that you want to call it, and then basically if there's a certain amount that is there, then they basically say, you qualify for a new roof, or your roof is damaged or whatever and it needs to be fixed. Again, long story short, and try to get this story told, is that we had the insurance company that came back out again a second time. They reviewed the roof. They did their inspection, and they basically proved or determined that the roof was damaged and that they would pay the claim. The reason why we had the conversations with essentially our roofing company or with our insurance company was the fact that the way that the deductible works on the insurance that essentially the HOA has for us is that because our house is essentially connected to two other houses, we basically split the deductible three ways. If the other two houses are not damaged, and they weren't because their roofs were actually replaced after the storm came through, and that's a completely different story, but essentially our house was, or our neighborhood originally was built in the 70s with wood shake shingles. And if you know anything about wood shake shingles, you know that they're very hard to insure this day and time, especially with fire danger and stuff like that. And so our community had made the decision a couple of years ago that essentially all the residents, as their roofs needed to be replaced, they would have to replace it with an asphalt type shingle. And so our neighbors, the time frame had basically come to that point in time, and they had gotten around to replacing their shingles, and so that's why they sort of missed the storm. So we bore the brunt of the entire deductible, and so because we had our insurance to basically cover for those types of scenarios, that's kind of what we were, holding out for, waiting on, whatever you want to say. And the other thing was, I wasn't 100% convinced that for whatever reason, I didn't scam necessarily didn't pop into my mind, but I was maybe concerned that perhaps the inspector back in August or September, whenever they came out and inspected all these houses, and by the way, there's like 300 in my neighborhood, that somehow or another maybe a house number got written down incorrect or whatever, and that maybe the damage that they thought was done to our roof actually was somebody else's house. But in any event, it was ours. The process of having the roof replaced started yesterday on Monday, the 24th of April. Today's the 25th of April, and I'm actually working from home, and I just decided that during my lunch hour I would record an episode here, and while I really didn't have anything better to do, and so that's what I'm doing. So anyway, sorry about that whole story, but it's going on in my life, and I thought I would share, and I appreciate you listening, because I think I actually mentioned it several weeks ago, and I think probably at that time I had said that I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. I didn't think that we were going to have our roof replaced because, again, all of these conflicting inspections and everything. But long story short, it did. We're in the process of getting it fixed or replaced. It's a 3-day process. The poor guys showed up yesterday at 7 a.m. to begin taking the shingles off, and it took them the entire day, 13 and a half hours of removing shingles. We have a fairly large house, and so today they're up there with a pretty big crew, hoping that they can get enough of it shingled. Probably won't get it finished today, because when we had our house re-roofed 7 years ago, it took them 3 days during the summertime, but at least they'll get things dried in enough that, because we do have snow, actually we've got snow and we've got rain in the forecast for this afternoon, this evening, and most likely it'll be tomorrow before they'll actually get everything 100% complete and done. So anyway, that's what's going on in my life. I hope you're having a wonderful week, a wonderful day. I hope that you're not having some of these problems going on in your world. And so, yeah, so this field, it looks like it's been plowed. I'll just bring up the field guide here and show you that basically, where is it? It's right over here. It needs plowing. See, it's still in yellow. That this particular field had the plowed texture to it, but it had actually not been plowed, obviously, and it was the last field that we own on this map that we had not yet plowed, and so that's why I'm doing that now. I'm trying to, in my series, in my Let's Plays, I'm trying to show at least each aspect of farming in at least one video. And obviously I think that doing showing on video, showing in a Let's Play the plowing of every single field on this map, or every single field that we own, and we own 11 fields, by the way, would become quite boring, I think. So I really thought that plowing is not my favorite thing to do, but obviously it's made a little bit easier with this large John Deere 2623. And if you're looking for a large plow like this, take a look at my mod spreadsheet and you will find it. But it certainly makes life a little bit easier with the fields that a plow like this basically can support. Obviously on a smaller map, a plow like this would just not work out at all, but on a map like Pine Cove or Cherry Hills or Lone Star, a plow like this works just fine. And of course I use a much smaller plow on all folds, as you guys have seen, but I kind of thought that I would, we'll showcase the act of plowing one episode, and that will suffice for the series on plowing. So that way you're not bored with it, and I don't get overly bored with it, because quite honestly, of the 10 fields that have been plowed to date, all of that was done with Courseplay AI, and of course this is my contribution to the fact that our field here needs to be plowed. So this field, you might remember, originally I talked about the fact that I was basically going to split this field in half and plant potatoes on one side and plant sugar beets on the other. Well, since we created essentially 3 fields in the field that's directly in front of us, and let me just bring up my HUDs here, and you can see as I bring up the big map. Field number 7, which is again just directly ahead of us, I sort of created a brand new field and made a super giant rectangle out of field number 7, and then the 2 end pieces, which are on the north side of the field, which are sort of separated by that woodland area. Courseplay was having a very difficult time with that, by the way, and the reason why I created the field the way that I did was so that Courseplay would have an easier time at handling that field. And that's just one of the things that I think that from time to time you might want to entertain for your own farms. And before we do that little dog leg, I'll just show you that what I did was I came in here and I planted a row of grass, which obviously hasn't sprouted yet, but you can see that row of grass growing, going from east to west there on field number 7. And so the large rectangle, that's actually corn, and then this grass strip that runs through there from east to west, and then on this portion here and also on the other side of that, and I'll bring up the map again, and you can see that that's a pretty good area. So we're actually going to do our potatoes, parking brake, we're going to do our potatoes and our sugar beets there on those pieces of land instead of doing them here on this little piece here. So hopefully that'll work out. I'm going to go ahead and plow this here. Most likely I will probably do something different with this field here. I may basically create another rectangle, because this little dog leg here is going to become a bit of a problem with Courseplay, because unfortunately what happens is sometimes the route will want to cut across the area there where those convenience stores and stuff are, and just kind of really cause some problems. And so I think I'll probably just create a rectangle out of that field and may, plant something over here that we'll just, harvest manually or something. But I showed you the steps for that in my courseplay tutorial that I released last week. I think it was on Saturday that I released that tutorial. So definitely check that out if you're interested in how to either define a brand new field. So let's say, for example, you have a large patch of grass area which is not set up as a field. So in other words, the map designer didn't necessarily classify it as a field, and if it's not been classified as a field, then really courseplay doesn't know that it exists. And so what you can do with that is you can sort of mark off your boundaries and create a field, but you can also use that same method to redefine a field. So as I demonstrated, and I'll just let you go look at that video because it'll have all the information that you need, but basically you can redefine a field. And I've had several people that commented and basically said that they knew that courseplay could be used to essentially define a field like a grassy area and such like that, but they had never really thought about using it to redefine a field or basically create additional fields, if you will. So essentially what we did with the field that I just talked about a few minutes ago, right over here, was we essentially created 3 fields out of this big one, and we can have completely independent crops in these fields just fine without any problems. And of course, because they are defined in courseplay, we can also set up our courseplay routes to do everything from plowing, cultivating, fertilizing, spraying, you name it, seeding, harvesting, etc. So Billy Bob and Red are still hard at work up here, and they're doing a fine job getting this field ready to go. And most likely in the next episode, I will be starting the process of seeding this field, and again, it's going to be wheat. So if my calculations are correct, this is the third, this will be the 3rd episode for this game day. So most likely, let's see, we've got, as I look at my planting schedule here, we've basically got 3 more fields to plant. So what I'm probably going to do, and that's going to consist of wheat, barley, and sunflowers. You guys have basically already seen a row crop planter planting corn, so I'll do the sunflowers off camera. In probably episode number 5, which I'll come to you with later in the week, will basically be planting of either the wheat or the barley in one of those fields, and then I'll do everything else off camera and basically be ready to go with the next game day very soon after that. And of course, we've got a whole bunch, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields to plant on day 3, which would be classified as late spring. So still a lot to do, and I think I must have made a wrong turn somewhere, but I'll show you the little campground here. And I think also in one of my earlier episodes, I talked about the fact that the lake is stocked with fish. And of course, we own this little campground here. And so we have people that come up and want to stay here in our little campground, and we let them do that if they pay. And we've actually managed to make a nice little income off of their stays. So they are equipped with little tents here, and of course a fire. I wish the fire was burning. And then here is a small little pond, or a small little lake, I guess, depending on where you're from. We would call this a pond in Texas because lakes are obviously much, much bigger. Here in Colorado, they would actually call this probably a lake. But if we kind of go off here, and I've got my swamp waders on, we do have ducks, and look at all the little fish there as we snorkel along. I don't know what kind of fish those are, but hopefully they're not piranha. but they are swimming along there. So nice to have that those amenities here on our little farm on Lone Star. So I'm very appreciative of that. And of course, if you have a camper, like a little travel trailer, you can bring that down here, and we let you park there on that little pad, and you can camp away and use the little pond there to fish and all that good stuff. So, hey, so thank you all so much for watching. I think that that's pretty much going to wrap us up for this episode as I bring the plow and everything back around to the main farm. We'll try not to disturb our campers here, but I appreciate you watching. I really do. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in the live streams, by the way. I am going to try, if my schedule permits, each Saturday, at least each Saturday, I am going to try very, very hard to have a live stream. And if I don't make it on Saturday, then maybe if my schedule permits, it'll be on Sunday. And but in any event, I have a lot of fun doing that, and I typically reserve my live streams for occasions where I have quite a bit of, actually we'll just cut across this field here because it's not been planted yet. But I usually arrange or defer some work and stuff that, you know, it would normally take me an hour or two off camera to do, and I save that for the live streams. And it's really cool to hang out with you all and help answer questions, or just, you know, chat about this or chat about that or whatever. And so that's primarily what I enjoy doing with my live streams. And of course, you guys have been so great to come and watch and attend those. I'm very, very appreciative of that. And of course, thank you all so much for watching my videos and liking them, and for the subscribers and such. Our channel continues to grow. We're somewhere in the 560 subscriber range, so I really appreciate that. Please make sure you tell your friends and any other folks that have YouTube, you know, that enjoy watching YouTube, about my GrizzlyBear Sims YouTube channel. So until next time, hopefully I won't hit that tree, and I didn't. Until next time, I say thank you so much for watching GrizzlyBear Sims YouTube on Lone Star, and please come back again for the very next episode on Wall Folds. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.